Welcome back. I am going to do a post-game analysis for the Michigan Wolverines against the Western Michigan Broncos. Before I get into it too much, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification bell down below. Especially give me some likes and some comments. Helps me decide what is going over well with the community and what I will continue to do moving forward. So do that for me. I appreciate it. So let's get into it. I really want to jump on. I think the first thing I want to say is a lot of good things for the Michigan Wolverines and one really bad thing. So let's start with the really bad thing. Let's just get it out there. Everybody already knows. Ronnie Bell, torn ACL. That is a heartbreaker. Especially after the ridiculous catch that he had, which got called back by the even more ridiculous pass interference call. You do not see guys make that catch over the shoulder one-handed like that. It was just ridiculous. And then, you know, he's on the punt return, and it's just a bad break for him. You know, it wasn't anything malicious or anything. That was just one of those freak accidents where a guy kind of takes him down and tweaks the knee the wrong way, and he's done for the year. Heartbreaker. I love that kid. I think he's a really smart football player. Ooh, excuse me. I think he's a really smart football player, and it's a tough loss for the Wolverines, especially in the first game of the year. Am I going to question him being on the special teams as a punt returner? No, I'm not. I am of the firm belief that you put your best guy in the best spots for them to succeed. And if that means your number one wide receiver is also your number one punt returner, then so be it. You play him. Same with kick return. You know, Blake Corum had a monster game. Do I question him being on the kick return? No, because you saw the special things he can do. I'm not going to second-guess the coaching staff or that decision that was made just because a freak accident happened. You know, Ronnie Bell could have blown out his knee on any single play, any offensive play, just playing wide receiver. So I'm of the firm belief that you put your best players out there, no matter what that means. If that means your starting quarterback is your best punt returner, put him out there. Okay, maybe that's stretching a little bit. Maybe not with the quarterback, because quarterback's a little bit of a different position. We all know that. But the point is, if that's your most dynamic guy, then you put him out there because that's what helps your team the most. So I don't second guess that. It's just a terrible thing, and you hate to see it, but it happens. And so the Michigan Wolverines are going to have to adjust moving forward. Okay, some of the good things that we saw. Cade McNamara seems like the leader we were hearing about. He seemed confident and cool in the huddle, and you know, when plays were breaking down, he showed some playmaking ability, which was nice.
So he keeps it and picks up maybe a yard on the play.
It was a lot of game manager from Cade McNamara in this one. Coming into the year, Josh Gaddis said that they wanted to focus on running the ball more, and that's exactly what they did. So not a lot of pressure was put on Cade McNamara. And I think that's a good thing. I think that when you have an inexperienced quarterback room, which the Michigan Wolverines have, it's good to lean on your running game. It makes things a lot easier on your quarterback. You're not putting all the pressure on them to make, 7 or 8 completions to march down the field to get into the end zone. You allow him to just hand the ball off and let your running game do some work for you.
Also get some points on
but on the bright side, we didn't see him as only a game manager. I felt like he did a good job of making plays. Like I said, there was a few times where, you know, some missed assignments happened up front with the offensive line, or a running back missed a block, and then McNamara had to move around in the pocket a little bit and make a play because things were breaking down, and he was able to do that. So a good sign for the Wolverines moving forward. He just played a solid game. I didn't see a lot to critique, really. I know it's Western Michigan, so it can be kind of difficult to how much you do want to take away, you know, from the game itself, because the defense is not as good as some of the defenses are going to see this year. But I thought he played well enough. He showed enough to confirm that he is probably your best starter currently. We'll get more on that later, especially when J.J. McCarthy came in and made the ridiculous play he did, but I'll get to that a little bit later. But But yeah, Cade McNamara, if I have one knock on him, maybe his arm strength isn't the best I've ever seen, but it's certainly good enough to make all the throws. That's just being nitpicky. But yeah, overall, I liked what I saw. The running back duo, I loved it. Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum complement each other very well. I thought the running game started out a little rocky, especially up front on the O-line. But you really saw as the game went on, the offensive linemen were really able to just wear down the Western Michigan defensive line. And then you saw bigger and bigger holes and bigger run plays, especially out of Blake Corum. And I know Corum statistically had the better game, but do not sleep on Hassan Haskins. He is a bruiser, and he's a very important back to have on your team when you need a couple yards. You're in 3rd and short, you're in 4th and 1, and you need somebody to just lower their head and go run over a defensive player to get it. Hassan Haskins, your guy, make no mistake. And the fact that those two complement each other very well is going to make it difficult on defenses, because you got Hassan Haskins coming in and wearing guys down, because every time they try to tackle him, he's just dishing out punishment. And then, you know, Blake Corum's coming out, and now you're after trying to keep up with this guy's shiftiness while you're sore after the first back came in and beat you up a little bit. So you've seen it plenty of times in the NFL. This is the same type of duo, the Thunder and Lightning, you know, the bruiser and the scat back. But I also felt like Blake Corum did a very good job of not relying solely on his quickness. When push came to shove, if he felt like he had a defensive back that he might be able to lower his shoulder and get a couple extra yards out of it, that's exactly what he did. So he's not a one-trick pony by any means. I do think he is the more talented of the two, but I would like to see Hassan Haskins continue to be your starter. And then who gets the most carries will just depend on how the game flow is going for that one particular game, who you feel is doing a better job of opening things up on the defense. So, yeah, a lot to like about that duo. The offensive line, like I said, started a little rough, but really started to come into their own later in the game. I'll be curious to see how that unit continues to grow and how the chemistry continues to evolve, especially as the competition starts to get a little tougher. They were without Zach Zinter, who was projected as a starter, but was out for this game. He is expected back, I think, for the Washington game. If not, then the game after that, I think, sounds like would be a certainty. So we'll have to see how that unit comes together. But again, I thought they played well, and I can't really take a lot away from them. There was a few letdowns in pass protection and some communication things, but I expect that to get cleaned up. From week 1 to week 2 is when you see your biggest jump, your biggest improvements out of your players for the season, because now you have something on tape. Now you've got evidence, you've got proof of the things that you need to fix. And I think for the offensive line, the biggest thing will just be communication. Western Michigan brought some blitzes on occasion that weren't picked up as cleanly as they should have been, and some guys just got beat on their assignments. So some things to clean up for sure. It's game 1, you know, nobody's perfect, but overall, a pretty good job by the unit. Like I said, I already touched on Ronnie Bell and losing him, but the other wide receivers did a good job. And you saw some of the explosiveness, some of the speed from those guys on the end around, from A.J. Hennig and Roman Wilson. They've certainly got some speed. Can they fill in for Ronnie Bell? I'm going to say no, not one guy in particular. Making up for a loss of Ronnie Bell is going to have to be done, I think, will have to be done by the entire wide receiving core. That entire room is going to have to come together and say, all right, we're all going to have to elevate our game to make up for the loss of Ronnie, because he is just that good of a player, and he was the leader of that room. I don't think anybody's going to doubt that for 1 second. So, do I think one guy can come in and make all the difference in the world? No, I don't. Do I think as a unit that they can come in and all elevate their game and make that loss hurt a little less? Yeah, I think they could. I think they've displayed a little bit of the playmaking ability, at least in the run game, to keep defenses honest. And hopefully they'll be able to improve what they can do as receivers in the passing game. So some good signs there. It's a tough loss to take from the unit to lose your best one in Ronnie Bell, but I think the entire wide receiving core and the tight ends, you saw Eric all get involved he could have a really solid year as well. If all those guys elevate their game just a little bit, that'll help make up for that loss. Defensively, loved what I saw play calling. Okay, Mike McDonald for your first game, for your first time calling a game as a defensive coordinator, I thought he did a really, really good job. Obviously, there's some things he can do a little better. But for the most part, he did a good job of mixing his blitzes, giving the Western Michigan offense varied looks and coverages. Sometimes they were man, sometimes they were zone, sometimes they were zone blitzing, sometimes they were man blitzing, bringing blitz from all over the place. I heard a lot of, coming into this game, I heard a lot of, well, Mike McDonald's going to try to run what the Baltimore Ravens run in the NFL. And yeah, I'd say that was pretty accurate. I saw a lot of similar things between those two defenses. I think he brought a lot from what he learned at Baltimore to Michigan. I think the defensive line for the Wolverines needs to tighten some things up. They started a little rough and got better as the game went on, so we'll have to see how much of an improvement those guys can make. But overall, I thought it was pretty good, and I thought the corners played really well.
I don't know what they'll do.
Based on how they played last year, I was not expecting a lot out of those units, but Vincent Gray you saw make some plays, and Jamon Green you saw make some plays, so mixing up coverages will go a long way. When the offensive, when your opponent's offense knows what you're going to do on every single play, and they've schemed for it all week, and the quarterback knows you're not going to give him a different look, so he gets comfortable throwing into that. It just makes things hard on your corners. They're out there on an island in the Don Brown defense, and everybody knew they were going to be on an island all game. And so when they came out struggling at the beginning of the year, you knew that teams were just going to continue to target those guys over and over and over again, and they did, and it was bad. But in this one, I think that Mike McCarthy's mixing up of the coverages and running some zone really helped those guys a lot. I didn't see anybody look too terribly uncomfortable dropping into a zone. Maybe a little bit out of the linebackers, but nothing that really was overly concerning. And just some little things that I think will get buttoned up as they get into the film room. So the defensive unit as a whole, yeah, I saw a lot of good things, and I liked what McCarthy's got in place there. And hopefully they'll be able to continue to mix things up and keep defenses or offenses on their heels as the season goes on. I thought Ellaby for Western Michigan is a very talented quarterback, and he was making some plays early, and I thought Michigan did a very good job defensively of adjusting to make him start to question some of his throws, made him hold the ball a little bit longer, and really buttoned up their coverages to not give him some of those open windows they were giving him early in the game. But I expect Western Michigan to finish towards the top of the MAC. Ellaby is a very talented quarterback. I really liked what I saw out of him. I can see why he had a lot of hype coming in this season for Western Michigan, and he didn't disappoint. He's really good quarterback. And I think Western Michigan as a whole is a very, very good MAC team. However, they are still a MAC team and might not even win the MAC this year, so let's temper expectations a little bit. Yes, Michigan looked good, but honestly, the bar was pretty low, wasn't it? I don't think anybody was expecting Michigan to come in this year and be world beaters. They're not ranked. Quite frankly, they looked pretty poor for most of last season, so hopefully we can wash that away and they can put that all behind them, and they will continue to improve as the season goes on. So to reiterate, quarterbacks. That's right, I said I was going to come back to that. J.J. McCarthy, that throw back across the field was ridiculous out of a freshman. That was some Brett Favre stuff right there. Now keep in mind, Brett Favre also has the record, or had the record in the NFL for most interceptions to go along with the other records he had set during his time. So maybe not the wisest decision in the world, but my goodness, J.J. McCarthy's got a live arm, doesn't he? That ball pops out of his hand. It's got plenty of zip. He can throw it really far. That throw was probably, what, 60 yards on a rope maybe? 55 to 60 yards, because he was throwing all the way across the field, down the field a little bit. So I don't know what the exact measurement was, but it was a heck of a throw and a great adjustment by the wide receiver to kind of separate himself from the corner and played the ball really well. So do I think J.J. McCarthy should be the starter right now? No. Do I think he's a really talented kid? Yeah, I do. I think everybody saw that. the raw talent that J.J. McCarthy has is evident. It was on clear display. He's got a phenomenal arm. I think mentally he is farther ahead than I expected him to be. But again, he's coming in a reserve role. You can feel comfortable. You've got a monster lead. You're playing Western Michigan, so not a lot of pressure on the kid. And that's good. That's the position Michigan should be finding for him this year. Build his confidence. Get him acclimated to the speed of the college game. I think he's got a lot of upside, but do I think he should be the starter right now? No, I don't. I think Cade McNamara proved that he can be the leader of this team. He can make enough plays for you to win a lot of games, and you just see how he continues to improve. And J.J. McCarthy, you bring him along. Like Patrick Mahomes for the Kansas City Chiefs. He sat behind Alex Smith for a year. There's nothing wrong with that. Even when he has that much arm strength, it's good for them to get acclimated and to not throw him to the wolves right away if you've got a competent and confident starter, which I think Michigan does in Cade McNamara. Things start to fall apart for McNamara, and he starts to lose his confidence. He starts to get skittish. He's not making good decisions. Then maybe you revisit that argument. But right now, even after all the good things we saw from J.J. McCarthy, temper your expectations. He's still a true freshman, and Cade McNamara looked every bit like the leader you want on the field, especially when things are going to start to break down. I think he's got a lot of moxie, a lot of poise, and I think he will be good for this offense moving forward. So I just want to touch on that briefly. Yes, J.J. McCarthy had some incredible plays. Yes, the talent there is evident, and he's got a super high ceiling. But I don't think he should be your starter right now. Sit him for this year if you can get away with it. And maybe next year he competes again for the starting job and wins it, which I could certainly see being the case because his talent's pretty ridiculous out of what we saw in this first game. So I just want to touch on that briefly. That's my take on the game, my takeaways. We saw a lot of good things from Michigan. Maybe their floor and their ceiling bumps up a touch, but certainly a little bit more to prove. Western Michigan's a good team, but not a great team by any means. And yeah, a lot to look forward to moving forward, but let's not go all crazy and expect them to win the East Division just yet. Definitely want to see more from them, but so far there was some good things. I thought the play calling, like I touched on, for the defense for Mike McCarthy for a first-time defensive coordinator was pretty solid. Hopefully that will continue as the year goes on and improve. And I thought that Josh Gaddis called a pretty nice game. In the pregame that analysis I did, I was a little bit harsh on Gaddis's play calling because I didn't feel like it was that good the last 2 years that he's been here as offensive coordinator. I felt like it was a little bit tighter this time, and he came back to some things that work. He circled back around to it, which he hadn't always done previously. The end around with A.J. Henning worked really, really well, and he saw a little bit of a weakness there on the perimeter of their defense. And then he came, I think it was Roman Wilson ran one as well. You know, a series or two later, he came back to it and it had success again. So it's all the little things like that that I look for in offensive play calling. You know, did you set up other plays? I felt like they did a pretty good job of that. Not the greatest game I've seen called in the world, but definitely an improvement for what we've seen over the last 2 seasons. So that's my breakdown for this one. I do intend to do another pregame for their upcoming game against the Washington Huskies. Yes, I will touch on the fact that Washington lost. A little hint right now: do not sleep on the Washington Huskies. They had a bad first game. That doesn't mean a whole lot coming into this Michigan game. I'll touch on that more in my pregame, but this is my take on the Michigan Wolverines versus Western Michigan Broncos and how everything played out and how I felt about the way the Wolverines looked. So that's going to wrap this one. Remember, all love, all the time. Peace.